All of the video you're seeing right now was created using the new OpenAI video generation tool. Not this one, to be clear. This is me in my editor phase, but all of these videos were created using Sora, the newly released OpenAI tool for generating video just using text prompts. I know, Prime already has a video on this. I promise this one's going to be very different. I'm just a deep nerd about video. I still edit a bunch for my channel, not as much as Phase, but enough. So I care a lot about doing video and doing video right. I also have a lot of time on Midjourney, especially recently, to generate a ton of stuff. Creating videos from text. Sora is an AI model that can create realistic and imaginative scenes from text instructions. All videos on this page were generated directly by Sora without modification. That's a really important call out because I've seen some of these AI video generation tools that work, but what they give you isn't an actual watchable video. They give you a bunch of frames that are almost a video because the way they would work is they would generate frame by frame with different prompts and end up with things that just looked awful. You can tell when you look at any paused still from this video that what it's doing is generating a bunch of stills instead of generating a smooth, cohesive video, which, let's be frank, most of the time, most of the pixels aren't changing. So if you're generating a new image for every frame, it's not going to come out cohesive. And if we go through this frame by frame, you'll see the amount of change between things is much higher than it should be for a video. See how in just a few frames, the background's entirely changed tonality and color? This dude's face there has changed hair color from black to gray, and now he has a beard all of a sudden. It's because there's no consistency between the images, because all of these images and all of these frames are being generated independently. And you'll even see some particularly cringe stuff if we go far along enough in, like when he jumps for the shot. Also, he's lost and regrown that beard 6 times. And here, God, there was a really good one. Let's go back a few frames for that. What's happening here? He's his head turned into the basketball for a few frames there. Right here, he's holding a basketball. His head has white hair, which changed color, no beard. We go a few more frames. His head's now turned into the basketball. We go a few more frames. His head is entirely the basketball. And then all of a sudden, it just isn't again. But my favorite part, for sure, is as he's going up and a face grows on the back of his head of a Greek god that changes face structure 6 times. I don't need to go any deeper in this. You can tell just how cringe and awful this video is. AI could not do this. Now things look a little bit different. We're teaching AI to understand and simulate the physical world in motion with the goal of training models that help people solve problems that require real-world interaction. Introducing Sora, our text-to-visual model. Sora can generate videos up to a minute long while maintaining visual quality and adherence to the user's prompt. Yeah. World of a difference here. Especially with a prompt this simple, this quality of video is absurd. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long dress, black boots. See the rest of it. Yeah, this is your pretty typical Midjourney prompt. In fact, let's go try it in Midjourney. So here is my Midjourney bot. I do it in DMs because I pay for Midjourney because I actually like it enough to do that. Ignore whatever was happening before. Imagine prompt. I'm going to brute force it to use version 6 because I want to see how this looks with the latest of Midjourney. One of the cool things with Midjourney is you actually get to see the steps as it's generating, which I think is really cool. You can see the halfway point, which should happen momentarily, where it's a weird blurry mess. And then slowly that gets refined into the right image. I could do a long video about how this works, but that's not what we're here for today. We're here to talk about video generation. Yeah, that's insane. The quality, even just here with that initial prompt copy pasted, is insane and also very weirdly similar looking to this, probably because the prompt has so much specific details about the black leather jacket, the long dress, and the boots. So let's take one of these and upscale it. I'm going to pick the second one, top right, because that looks really good to me. Very similar. Cool that the aesthetic you would expect from something like a Midjourney image is largely being captured by this. This looks like a real video. I am so curious how they got this to the quality they got it to, but I'm just as baffled by this as I am by Midjourney. The tech and the capabilities of these models has gotten to the point where the quality they're putting out is insane. I want to see more of these examples. Several giant woolly mammoths approach, trotting through a snowy meadow. Their long woolly fur lightly blows in the wind as they walk. Snow-covered trees and dramatic snow-capped mountains in the distances. Mid-afternoon, light with wispy clouds and a sun high in the distance. Once again, we got some really good results from Midjourney when we're asking it for mammoths. I asked it to upscale the second one again, and yeah, that's really good. Good stuff. This looks like another YouTube creator I like, Nathan Barnett, surprisingly similar to his Dad Feels series. I could see projects like that, like indie projects, getting a lot of benefit from here. This is like the world's best stock footage generator. For any of y'all who aren't familiar, there's a whole like massive business around stock assets. There are websites like Envato that you pay a subscription for, and then you can search generic things like angry teacher. And now it's going to give me footage of an angry teacher that I can license and download and use in our videos. You've seen a lot of the stock footage in my videos in the past because we pay for a license for the channel so we can get these videos when it makes sense. It's so nice having licenses for things like this. That said, you've probably seen some of the same stock footage in lots of different videos because there's only so much of this. There is a surprisingly large amount. Like I searched angry teacher on one of the menu providers and I found 244 videos. But not all of these are usable or necessarily the right thing that I'm looking for. And if I wanted to be more specific, like I wanted this guy wearing a blue shirt instead, that level of control doesn't exist when you're using someone else's stock footage that you're paying a cheap license for. The ability to effectively generate your own equivalents is insane. And the implications here are hard to fathom for me as a YouTube content creator. Ooh, interesting. This is the first one where there's like apparent visible errors. Like what's going on his hand here? Very interesting. It's the first time I've seen something where I was like, oh, that looks not quite right. The animation, though, this is a thing that I've thought a lot about with video is like easing and like the speed he moves back and forth isn't consistent. It's not linear. It's like you bounce back and you bounce forward. Getting these details right is really, really hard. This video absolutely blew my mind. Really, really, really good breakdown of what makes animation so hard. There's this one moment in here that I'm just going to play verbatim.
The book outlines what we call the 12 principles of animation. You got timing, staging, exaggeration, anticipation, straight ahead versus pose to pose, solid drawn, arcs, follow through and overlap, squash and stretch, secondary actions, appeal, and easing. Now, I don't expect you to internalize and remember all of that, but suffice to say, all of these principles are, in their own way, extremely important to the process of crafting a good-looking cartoon. And here are the ones that the AI completely fucking ignores.
This is the thing I wanted to highlight. AI video has been very, very bad, largely because it doesn't understand any of these things, in particular when it comes to animation. In this video, it's being described as why the 30 to 60 FPS hacks like Mulan and 60 FPS look as bad as they do, because they lose a lot of the nuance of these pieces when you do that type of upscaling. That's not something I'm seeing with any of this. The fact that it could do an animated scene and it could look that good, specifically that the animation could have some nuances to it, where like the speed as eyebrows close and open back up isn't linear. Though that's a huge difference from what I've seen from any of these tools in the past. That means that they're not just understanding images and like moving a camera around in them. They're actually generating real video here. And I'm honestly a little blown away. A papercraft world of a coral reef. Interesting that they're trying out bolder things like that, because this looks bad. It's not anywhere near as bad as any of the other AI video I've seen before this, but like compared to the other stuff, this doesn't look like something that a studio would produce. Like at a glance, all these other things look like something you would see in like a student's demo reel for the cinematography or the animation work they're doing. This one just has a strange vibe to it. Not as much so. Probably just because it doesn't have as much reference material, because this isn't something I've seen someone try and do. Ooh, vertical video. Interesting. So I don't know if it knows the difference between vertical and horizontal. So I'm guessing they had to crop this themselves, but they said no other editing was done. So very interesting. This looks absurdly real. Like this, you could have convinced me previously was not CGI. In this, like, God, bird stuff's always fun and weird. One of my favorite artists, Flume, has used birds as a theme for a lot of his music videos lately. This type of thing, he had to pay an artist a lot of money to do. This type of thing being accessible is a very, very interesting concept that has implications I'm struggling to even start to think of now. God, initially, when this was in the background, I saw the flag and immediately thought of the moon landing, which if people are currently speculating the moon landing didn't happen, there will never be a scientific achievement that we document that won't be doubted and questioned as just being AI generated going forward. And God, like all the alien skepticism stuff. Do you know how easily you could use a tool like this to generate very, very compelling fake alien stuff? Oh God, I don't like that thought at all. One thing I've noticed is it always feels like the camera's moving arguably too much. I'd be curious if you put in the prompt like camera on tripod, if it would be stationary. There's a lot of weird things like that you can do in these prompts. Like when I'm doing image generation, I'll often add things like shot on iPhone, which will entirely change the results of the image that you get out because it's changing the things it's referencing when it generates that image. This looks incredible so far. Let's read more. Today, Sora is becoming available to red teamers to assess critical areas for harms or risks. We're also granting access to a number of visual artists, designers, and filmmakers to gain feedback on how to advance the model to be most helpful for creative professionals. We're sharing our research progress early to start working with and getting feedback from people outside of OpenAI, and to give the public a sense of what AI capabilities are on the horizon. I'll be honest, this run-on sentence feels like an AI wrote it. This is a 3-liner sentence. Anyways, more example videos. Historical footage of California during the gold rush. Still with insane amounts of camera movement. I'm very curious if any of these don't move the camera a bunch. Close-up view of a glass sphere with a Zen garden within it. Yeah, all of these have like too much camera movement. Even this one of just a close-up on somebody's eye blinking. They're moving the camera back and forth. Feels like that's a thing that it's doing. Oh, stationary camera. For an animation of a kangaroo dancing. That is such a short prompt for this quality of output. Just again, for reference, I just want to show an example of what a basic prompt like this usually gives you. So again, with Midjourney, which again, not video. Oops, I essentially used V5 there because I forgot to put the prompt for V6. So we can even compare the old and new version of Midjourney. Again, while it's running, I'm going to keep reading through. A beautiful homemade video showing the people of Lagos, Nigeria in the year 2056. Shot with a mobile phone camera. This actually perfectly showcases the concern I have here. A beautiful homemade video shot with a mobile phone. What part of this video looks homemade or shot with a phone? Because this looks like it was shot with a professional drone. Also, I noticed some like distance stuff here where like these people and the 3 that it's zooming into are supposedly visibly on the same like plane. But these people are like 4 times taller, like right there, this frame. You can clearly see these people are way smaller than the ones here. And like its ability to dictate and its ability to understand size seems not great in this particular moment with the difference there. It's still a billion times better than I ever would have expected. But like, oh, there was another tiny thing. Did you see it? Can you guys see it? That's not a frame by frame. Can we? There's no frame by frame keys for this. You can see here his hand phases through his face a tiny bit. Through his glasses. Yeah, there's like one frame there where his hand's like inside of his glasses. I also couldn't help but notice there's this little thing in the corner. Is that in all of them? Yeah, that's in all of them. That's a marker to like let you know it's AI generated, I think. But this is not a home video. Their prompt, I would argue, failed here. It did a great job of the location and the vibe, but the shot in 2056 was largely ignored. The shot with a mobile phone was entirely ignored, and a beautiful homemade video was also ignored. Interesting to see what it isn't able to understand. Here's the V5 generation, which you can see is pretty traditional 2D cartoon stuff. Turning this into a video would be obnoxious. You can also see there's a lot of like weirdness with his paws and stuff. But when we look at the V6 generation, yeah, that's a lot closer to what they're doing here. With all these AI visual tools starting to come together in terms of the output looking both much better and more similar, I'm curious if this style will both become the norm as well as kind of a thing to be ashamed of. The same way like we all copy Apple right now in order to put together our business presentations. I'm curious if all business presentations looking like clones of Apple, if we're going to see that with these AI tools as well, and what this will end up looking like for media going forward. A petri dish with a bamboo forest growing within it that has tiny red pandas running around. I like that they're showing these more like made up scenarios and also lower quality ones. Like the first 9 were way nicer than these ones overall. They're being honest with it. Okay, interesting. This one's really interesting because it touches on something I'm not sure how it will work here. This is already a problem I have with something like Midjourney. Getting Midjourney to use my face is incredibly, incredibly difficult. You have hacks to do it. So the way I put my face into Midjourney right now is I go grab some pictures of my face that are like usable. This one. something with a different color shirt just so it has more references, ideally a less goofy face. Now it has these 2 photos of me. If I want to use these, I start my prompt with links to these in Discord. So instead of copy image, I have to copy link, paste, space, wait for it to load, copy link, paste, space. A man presenting the news on a CRT TV, early 80s. I forgot the V6. Prompt that with V6. And while that's generating, I'll point out the thing I wanted to highlight here. The thing I would immediately want to do when I see this is control some of the footage that's being placed on these TVs. I would want to use this as like a template in order to generate something more specific. These AI tools are not even close. Right now, if I'm a developer and I want to use an AI tool, I'm probably going to use Copilot. I start typing something and it auto-completes the rest. And then I can make quick changes there to anything it gives me because it's just giving me the code. Once you have a baked video like this, if I want to put something else on one of these screens, especially now that it's like moving around, that is incredibly difficult to do. So if you're using this as is, cool, it's going to work great. But if you want to change this in any way or like embed someone's face in it or put different footage in a scene like this, the way it works right now, it's not going to help with that. And that's sad because I think that's one of the most useful ways to use AI is to use it alongside a professional in the field to assemble these things in really, truly unique and creative ways. That's how we do it as developers. I wish I could do this with video too. So again, with the examples here, the V5 ones are pretty cheesy and not great looking, but the V6 ones are actually overall pretty dope. I don't know why there's one of me with my shirt backwards. That's one of the worst mistakes I've seen recently, but I would have expected to put me inside of the TV. You get the idea. It's pretty hard. Like I got it to roughly represent my face a little bit in these, but not much. And it also didn't follow my instructions of me presenting on the TV. I expected that to put me inside of the CRT TV. I could go through and adjust this prompt for 10 to 20 minutes to get it just right so it finally starts to put things together, but it's not going to do a good job at it. It'll do an okay job at it. It's fun for like one-off assets, but it's not passable or particularly usable. This is closer and it's video, but it's still missing that level of control that I would need to meaningfully use this alongside my produced content. As a replacement for shops for buying a bunch of B-roll, right now this is competing with Envato Elements and Storyblock. It's not competing with my video editor. I feel like this one's applying too much of the style to the animated fluffy creature rather than to the space around it. Very passable for a short clip. I just wouldn't expect like a 10-minute version of this to be particularly good, and you would expect to see even more of these weird things like the lighting being entirely different on the creature than it is on the ground around it. Especially like when it changed color to pink there for a second. It just literally one frame changes from blue to purple. That's a bug. That is like, if that happened when my video editor was working on a video, I would tell him to fix it. Thankfully, he tends to fix those things before I even see him. Far from perfect. And this set's significantly worse than the first 8. I see why they put them down here. Let's see what they have to say though, because I don't want to just sit here shitting on it, especially when I'm actually really impressed. So Sora is able to generate complex scenes with multiple characters, specific types of motion, and accurate details of the subject and background. The model understands not only what the user has asked for in the prompt, but also how those things exist in the physical world. I'll say for the most part, this is true. The weird clip where the people sizing was incorrect, that's not something possible in the physical world, but it's way better than anything I've seen before, especially that awful basketball example I showed earlier. The text on the car is still fucked. They still can't do text. It's supposed to be a Land Rover, but that's a Danover is what that is. God, I love my Danover. Like if I use Copilot to generate a function for me and it gives 2 variables names that are like typoed or otherwise not what I would have named it, I still press tab, I still get the autocomplete, I just go fix those 2 things. Good luck fixing that in post. The amount of money and effort it would take to adjust that and like change the text there is great enough that you wouldn't bother. You would just go shoot it or 3D animate it or something yourself. It's incredibly non-trivial to make those types of adjustments. For it to understand reflections that well is kind of cracked. I'm not going to lie. It's blurring the person's face a bunch, but not so much so that it's unpassable. Yeah, especially that dark part there. For it to understand the complexity of... Okay, yeah, this is the craziest one I've seen. Light is one of the hardest things for computers to understand. That's why ray tracing is just now becoming a thing. That is very compelling. Okay. You're winning me over. This is the demo on the homepage. A flock of paper airplanes flutters through a dense jungle, weaving around trees as if they were migrating birds. This one's very interesting because, again, it's something that can't happen in the real world, and there probably isn't much reference footage for. So it's being forced to combine these ideas that it might have some pieces of, but not a lot. And you can really see that with how it struggles at certain points, like these ones in the corner here getting blended together, or this bundle that all comes together and like weirdly fades out of existence and disappears, or even the tree by these ones here artifacting in those weird ways. It almost looks like in a video game when you get the low poly version because it's far enough in the distance. Like that's what I'm seeing here. But you compare the smoothness of like those leaves in the top left corner with the ones over here, it's far from perfect. But goddamn is it compelling. Yeah. Oh. Okay, there's an uncanny valley here for sure, where like the structure of this person's body under the covers is not physically possible, because they were lying like with their back towards the cat, like their body towards the cat before, and then like they roll over in a way that's not physically possible, where their body goes from like this way to this way. Yeah, and then like their hand here and their arm almost looks like they're missing half of it, and it becomes the blanket when it flips over. Like that's a big miss. Like they're wearing the t-shirt of this blue color. The sheets are a different blue, and the shoulder turns into the sheets when they flip over there. This is an artifact of like the same weirdness that we saw in the basketball video at the beginning. But like the cat's paw being able to like hit their face and like stop when it gets there is huge. But then he moved the same paw again right after. So left paw hits. Right paw becomes left paw. Clone of right paw stays, left paw hits again. Now there's two paws there. Very, very strange. It's very good, but for these examples, you can really see the mistakes when you look. This one mostly looks good. It's still relying really heavily on the camera movement. Camera movement tends to make everything look more realistic, so it makes sense. The model has a deep understanding of language, enabling it to accurately interpret prompts and generate compelling characters that express vibrant emotions. Sora can also create multiple shots within a single generated video that accurately persist characters and visual style. That's huge. This is a thing that you don't get even with like Midjourney. If I happen to really like this top right version of Theo that it generated, cool. I get to use him here. I can upscale him and I can generate variations of him. But I can't use him in a future prompt. So this Theo kind of dies in this Midjourney instance. I can't reuse him for additional stuff. I could put him in as an input and hope I get something close enough and just do what like Nick St. Pierre does and generate thousands of them in hopes that I get the exact right one. But I'm not going to do that. I don't put the effort in. I just use these things for references. Regardless, really, really good stuff. Okay, this is interesting. So this is similar to like the 3D stuff where this isn't real footage. So if they put a lot of work into making it understand reality, it wouldn't be able to do this. The other thing about a stop motion animation like this is that you would never, ever, ever move the camera. If you know anything about claymation or stop motion, the worst thing in the world that can happen is your camera moves, because now all of your shots are misaligned. You could do a little bit of this type of movement in post, but like all of the movies by like, I don't know, Tim Burton, that camera is as stationary as it can be, and then they move it in post. So this one's questionable. Looks great, but questionable output. What are we at? 2 videos so far where the camera doesn't move a whole bunch. Cinematic 35mm film. We're still gaming these with those types of things. You can tell when the prompt doesn't have enough references, because this one just looks like a bunch of like weird images somebody might have made for like an IMAX advertisement. And it's weird. It looks fine for what it is. It's just strange. And like the buildings don't look quite right, because again, it just doesn't have much reference for this. It doesn't know how to combine these ideas. But it's trying, and the results are good. Oh, I did see this one. And it's a big fan of puppies in slow-mo. Very, very good. There's a little bit of things, this one, that don't look quite right, with like the mouth movement and the way his snoot kind of gets like too short sometimes when it's animating. Well, it's not really animating, but you get the point. This one looks great. And if this was just thrown in as like a 5-second clip as B-roll, you wouldn't even have noticed. The current model has weaknesses. It may struggle with accurately simulating the physics of a complex scene and may not understand specific instances of cause and effect. For example, a person might take a bite out of a cookie, but afterward the cookie might not have a bite mark. The model may also confuse spatial details of a prompt. For example, mixing up left and right. It may struggle with precise descriptions of events that take place over time, like following a specific camera trajectory. Yeah, we've noticed that one. Step printing of a person running. Cinematic film shot in 35mm. Sora sometimes creates physically implausible movements. I didn't even notice that because I was too distracted by the camera. Yeah, he's just putting his front leg over in the front again and again. That happened with one of the cat ones earlier. Those were subtle, though. This one's less subtle. There's just suddenly more and more of these wolves. And I promise you, this is not how wolves appear. Don't look up how they do. In here, with the basketball one, yeah, that, oh God. And at the end, the ball phasing through. I've seen a little bit of that, of like things phasing through stuff. Because it understands motion and physics some amount, which is crazy for a visual model like this. But it's still figuring out how to deal with those things and how they interface with other things over time. Very interesting. I like they're being so transparent with this and showcasing some of the like worst examples here. Archaeologists discover a generic plastic chair in the desert, excavating and dusting it with great care. That's a hilarious concept for like a prompt and for a video. But yeah, they just like pull this thing off the chair and it unfolds into a chair. This is the type of shit I expect from that old like basketball example from earlier. Like this isn't great. Sora fails to model the chair as a rigid object, leading to inaccurate physical interactions. Interesting that it has an idea of a rigid object and a non-rigid object. Here's one of a grandmother with neatly combed gray hair standing behind a colorful birthday cake. God, Granny, why you gotta do me like that? Why your hair that much nicer than mine today? I had to film this video. I didn't have time to do my hair, okay? She looks great. So what's the issue with this one? Again, like, if you focus on her, it's fine. I was just focused on her. Let's take a look at the people in the background, because that seems to be where the problem is. Her hand's being weird. And what the hell is she doing? Yeah, this I would classify like most of those background things as humorous generations. Safety is going to be a fun one here. I immediately thought of this when I saw this tool existed. It is not easy to generate video right now. It is much harder to generate inappropriate video or otherwise misleading or harmful video. That's why like fake video tends to exist in really weird niches, like fake military footage of aliens. But once we're talking about like proper footage, like the reason we've never seen Bigfoot is it's really hard to generate a good video that looks like a Bigfoot. With this, that's a real risk. Or like AI deepfakes of things that shouldn't be deepfaked, or like a clip of the president saying something the president shouldn't say. There are very real safety risks here, and I'm curious how they're planning to handle those, especially after the video that I'll be posting right after this, where OpenAI was very public about the fact that they have malicious state actors using their tools to try and hack people and do sketchy shit with, including Iran and Russia. That's terrifying. So how are they going to keep Sora from being used in malicious ways by these malicious actors? We'll be taking several important safety steps ahead of making Sora available in OpenAI's products. We are working with red teams, domain experts in areas like misinformation, hateful content, and bias, who will be adversarially testing the model. Speaking of testing, can you guys hook me up? I'd really appreciate it. I've done a lot of OpenAI coverage and I love y'all. Consider it, okay? Thank you guys. Anyways. We're also building tools to help detect misleading content, such as detection classifiers, that can tell when a video was generated by Sora. We plan to introduce C2PA metadata in the future if we deploy the model in an OpenAI product. C2PA, for those who don't know, is an open standard for making it easier to embed metadata in an image or video in this case, to make it clear that this was AI generated. I don't know if there's an equivalent for audio at this point in time. If like you were to combine the Sora stuff with 11 Labs, which if you're not familiar is the probably right now best way to do voice AI generation and train it very trivially. Scared to even be showing this to y'all because you're going to use it to fake my voice and do nasty stuff. But yeah, not that much I can do at this point. So yeah, cool to see this as a focus. The same standards are being adopted for camera manufacturing and for media content. What I will say here is this is only good until the video has been processed. As soon as I'm changing the color or editing the video or doing what I'm doing now, which is recording straight to OBS, barely even using my camera, this doesn't work for a lot of that. I'm curious to see how well these embedded things work. I still remember when we were exploring something like this at Twitch in order to detect infringing material by hearing things that the human couldn't hear, but computers could in an audio track. Curious to see how this goes. I am hopeful C2PA goes particularly well. To be determined. In addition to us developing new techniques to prepare for deployment, we're leveraging the existing safety methods that we built for our products that use Dall-E 3, which are applicable to Sora as well. For example, once in an OpenAI product, our text classifiers will check and reject text input prompts that are in violation of our usage policies, like those that request extreme violence, sexual content, hateful imagery, celebrity likeness, or the IP of others. Celebrity likeness being removed is going to be an interesting choice. I'll be honest, I had a lot of fun prompting Midjourney to make me weird photos of Trump, like him winning at Chuck E. Cheese, or if I scroll up a little further, eating an ice cream. This is one of the most fun use cases. I've even used this for thumbnails in the past. Like if I scroll a little bit further, you'll see, you can even see that I use this for generating thumbnails for the second channel quite a bit. Like here's the angry Tim Cook I used, and more importantly, here's the excited Tim Cook I used. Everybody thought this was a real photo. For me, the giveaway was the double lav, but I recently learned was actually a reference to this particular conference where his lav, but he had what very much looks like a double lav here. So as much as I thought that image was incorrect, it's actually referencing this with the blue shirt and the lav, which is pretty close to accurate to this. I was very shocked at what I thought was an error here wasn't. Sorry for that tangent. I just had to get that info out of my head at some point. I've been thinking about that since I learned it. Anyways. Not allowing celebrity likeness is a bold, big choice that's going to both leave a huge opening for competition, which is likely going to be less safe, but also protects them from being sued by Donald Trump or someone for claiming that they were used in an AI-generated video that OpenAI provided the capabilities of. And I know there's going to be a lot of things, especially with the upcoming elections, where there will be faked videos with faked audio to look like some important political figure did something they didn't, or worse, footage that they actually did of things they actually committed being pointed out to be AI generated, whether or not it was. There are some things to be worried about here. We've also developed robust image classifiers that are used to review the frames of every video generated to help ensure that it adheres to our usage policies before it's shown to the user. We'll be engaging policymakers, educators, and artists around the world to understand their concerns and to identify positive use cases for the new technology. Despite extensive research and testing, we cannot predict all of the beneficial ways people will use our technology, nor all of the ways people will abuse it. That's why we believe that learning from real-world use is a critical component of creating and releasing increasingly safe AI systems over time. Oh no, buddy, you're not a cat. Don't jump across windows. These 3D animations are looking more and more uncanny valley. They feel like a bad, kids tune under the guise of being a normal children's show. Okay, you have a corgi now. You have my interest. A corgi vlogging itself in tropical Maui. The selfie stick's not quite accurate. That's not how you mount a selfie stick to a corgi. I definitely would know. I have lots of experience there. The camera is also not a real camera. It's a combination of a phone camera and a GoPro, and it does not look even close to accurate. Yeah, this could be worse. It'd be nice if it actually used the camera that it's vlogging with, but when you Google image search for someone vlogging, you get them holding a selfie stick. That makes sense. Some of these reminded me of something I read on Twitter. I don't have a source for. I probably should. I am sorry. Especially this one. It's pretty likely that they're not just training on traditional video recordings, because those aren't going to have that concept of space and physics that they were talking about. It's much more likely they're taking advantage of some of the crazy rendering capabilities of something like Unreal Engine, creating models, recording a video within Unreal Engine that looks very close to realistic, and then showing the AI both. So it says, hey, this 3D world has these types of videos. So it can map those together and start linking the relationship between the 3D representation data and the actual 2D video that you get out. I think it makes a lot of sense that they're using things like Unreal Engine to construct a fake 3D world to generate training data. Research techniques. Sora is a diffusion model, which generates a video by starting off with one that looks like static noise and gradually transforms it by removing the noise over many steps. We kind of saw that when I was generating things in Midjourney earlier, where it would start with the weird blurry image and then more and more fix it. This is different from things like ChatGPT or Copilot, where they usually start with the most likely next character, kind of like how autocomplete works on your phone, until it has generated the entire prompt. So that's the core difference here compared to something like the ChatGPT model and a diffusion model. Interesting that they're actually using that for video, that they're starting with a whole noise video and then going through and updating it. Sora is capable of both generating an entire video all at once, as well as extending generated videos to make them longer. By giving the model foresight of many frames at a time, we've solved a challenging problem making sure a subject stays the same even when it goes out of view temporarily. This is huge. As I was showing at the beginning, no one has this even close to correct. Similar to GPT models, Sora uses a transformer architecture, unlocking superior scaling performance. We represent videos and images as a collection of smaller units of data called patches, each of which is akin to a token in GPT. By unifying how we represent data, we can train diffusion transformers on a wider range of visual data than was possible before, spanning different durations, resolutions, and aspect ratios. Sora builds on past research in Dall-E and GPT models. It uses the recaptioning techniques from Dall-E 3, which involve generating highly descriptive captions for the visual training data. As a result, the model's able to follow the user's text instructions in the generated video more faithfully. That checks out. Also, it's very much touching on this idea of like knowing what elements are in the video rather than just assuming that the video frames are their own separate images to be treated accordingly. The bit here of tracking things as objects, even when they're out of frame, that's huge. That's very different from how these things worked before. In addition to being able to generate a video solely from text instructions, the model is able to take an existing still image and generate a video from it, animating the image's contents with accuracy and attention to small detail. The model can also take an existing video and extend it or fill in missing frames. Learn more in our technical paper coming later today. Ooh boy. I'm skeptical about filling in missing frames. You should check out the video by Noodle I have in the description that I referenced earlier if you want to see why, but it does seem like this understands animation and those concepts better than previous models, so I'm very curious. Sora serves as a foundation for models that can understand and simulate the real world, a capability we believe will be an important milestone for achieving AGI. That's a bold ending. To say this isn't just a video generator, this is an AI for understanding the real world. Ooh boy. All videos on the page are generated directly by Sora without modification. Yeah, there's all the credits. Wow, this looks crazy. I'm blown away. I still have a job. Hopefully, if I talk about this stuff enough, I'll continue to have a job, but let me know in the comments if you like this so I know if I can do more AI coverage, because I've been a little hesitant, but these things are getting more and more interesting, and I just want to talk about them. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you tried Sora. And one more plea, OpenAI, please, 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 please let me try this. I promise I'll give you lots of good feedback. I'm friends with people on the security team. I'll continue feeding them any and all things they should know. Just let me try. I'm good, I promise. Seriously. Anyways, for everyone else, peace, nerds.